Mexico is a country that in recent decades has not had it easy at all. The country's problems have been very varied, but most of the ills that plague Mexico have had a common denominator: corruption. In this way, Mexico has had a very tough time in recent years, and its economy has not managed to keep pace with the rapid growth of other developing countries such as China, India, or Indonesia. However, Mexico has before it one of the greatest opportunities in its history to finally become a great economic power capable of standing toe-to-toe with the world's major economies. But what can Mexico do to grow? What opportunities lie ahead? Can Mexico really become one of the world's largest economies? So, make yourselves comfortable because we're about to find out. Hello to all the community of Finance for All, welcome to another video. Mexico is a country that has everything to succeed. Demographically, it is a powerhouse with more than 126 million inhabitants, making it the second most populous country in all of Latin America after Brazil and the 10th most populous country in the world. Moreover, its population pyramid is very healthy, and Mexico does not yet have major problems with an aging population. Additionally, Mexico has tremendous wealth in natural resources. Mexican have it all: oil, gold, silver, copper, zinc, lead, fluorite, manganese, and many other minerals. And if that weren't enough, it has many hectares of fertile land thanks to its geography, climate, and easy access to water in many areas of the country. In addition, Mexico has another gem: its spectacular beauty and rich cultural heritage, which have made Mexico a country that never leaves the top 10 most visited countries by foreign tourists. But above all, Mexico is the gateway to the United States. Having the undisputed world power as a neighbor has many advantages, as it makes it much easier than for other countries to trade with Uncle Sam. So, if Mexico has all this, why is the country doing so badly? Well, there are many reasons, but let's quickly list the major problems that plague the country. As we said at the beginning, Mexico has a cancer that is almost impossible to eradicate: corruption. Corruption has been a major obstacle to Mexico's economic development. Corruption in Mexico is not only a wound through which millions of dollars escape, but it has also brought the country great insecurity and a terrible problem of violence. Mexico is the prey of a war between cartels, police, and the army, where criminal organizations continuously fight to take over vast territories and control the routes for smuggling drugs into the United States. Instability and corruption have created a lack of physical and legal security that has driven away many investors who until now have not wanted to know anything about the Aztec country. This has caused the Mexican economy to rely too heavily on oil for years, and the country has faced very difficult crises when the price of its particular black gold has fallen. You know, having such a valuable resource is often a poison dart, as it is difficult to diversify your economy to avoid relying solely on easy money. In addition to all this, there is also great inequality, with a very rich and ostentatious elite contrasting with a very poor lower class, especially in rural areas. But well, the luck of this country can change radically. How? We are about to see. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, the United States was left without a rival in the world that could overshadow it, so global hegemony was not in danger. This accelerated a process that had been gaining momentum for decades: globalization. Globalization awakened a giant that had been asleep until then: China. In a few decades, the Asian giant became the world's factory. At first, China specialized in producing mass goods of low added value and dubious quality. However, over the years, the country has developed, and its industry began to aspire to more, gradually becoming an industry intensive in the use of technology and high quality. Moreover, the development of the country has caused Chinese workers to have higher wages, and therefore, manufacturing in China is no longer so cheap. But not only that, the development of China has brought about a paradigm shift in the world. The Asian giant has become a real rival to the United States on an economic, geopolitical, and even military level. This new status quo became evident after the trade war that Trump declared on Xi Jinping's government. Additionally, the West realized that it could not rely on China for everything and that it had to diversify its supply chains, especially in strategic industries. The conclusion of all this: the West needs to diversify its suppliers and find other countries that can produce a lot and cheaply. And this is where Mexico comes in, which is in an ideal situation. Why? Let's review. To begin with, Mexico has significant cultural ties with both the United States and Europe. In fact, more than 11 million Mexicans live in Uncle Sam's country, and the fact that Spanish is spoken in Mexico is a great help when doing business with the European Union. Moreover, Mexico has free trade agreements with both the United States and Canada, as well as with the European Union, which means that Mexico can export goods to all these countries without its products being encumbered by tariffs. These agreements also provide Mexican products with preferential access to international markets and encourage foreign direct investment in the country. On the other hand, Mexico is in an ideal geographical situation, being the only country along with Canada that has an extensive land border with the United States, which, let's remember, is the most powerful country in the world. But if that weren't enough, Mexico has major commercial ports that give it access to both the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. Mexico also has a solid manufacturing industry that has brought foreign investment and boosted exports. Companies such as Toyota, BMW, Samsung, Bombardier, Foxconn, Audi, Ford, General Motors, Nestle, and Nike have made significant investments in factories on Mexican soil. Chinese companies are also investing heavily in the country, undertaking projects such as the Hofusen Industrial Park in Monterrey. In other words, skilled labor, competitive costs, and proximity to U.S. consumer markets have been key factors in Mexico's success. Moreover, Mexico still has relatively high-quality technical labor at very low prices. In fact, the average salary in Mexico is lower than the average salary in China, which also provides competitive advantages to the Mexican manufacturing industry. Additionally, the country's literacy rate is increasingly high, while the number of people with secondary and higher education is growing. Moreover, as we have seen, Mexico has an abundance of raw materials. So the cocktail is perfect for Mexico to become a great industrial power. That said, to have a competent industry, in addition to everything described, one very important thing is needed: a constant and cheap source of energy. Indeed, Mexico has a lot of potential for the installation of a lot of renewable energy capacity. Mexico has many hours of sunshine and enough surface area to install large photovoltaic parks. It also has a lot of high-altitude territory, ideal for harnessing the wind and generating wind energy. For all these reasons, in 2013 Mexico implemented an energy sector reform that opened it up to private hands. This allowed the participation of national and international companies in the development of renewable energy projects. Since then, numerous wind and solar parks have been developed. In fact, Mexico has committed to increasing the share of renewables in its energy matrix. The country has set the goal of having 35% of its energy generation come from renewable sources by this year and has committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 22% by 2030. However, beyond sustainability, the important thing about the development of renewable energy in Mexico is that, in addition to being able to export it to the United States, Mexico will also be able to supply its industry with clean and, above all, cheap energy. This will be another reason for many energy-intensive industries to settle in the country, as the further these industries are from their energy source, the higher the cost of energy. In short, Mexico faces an absolutely historic opportunity, a train that does not pass by twice in a lifetime and can help the country become a fully developed economy once and for all. Understanding this and reducing levels of corruption and crime will be the key ingredients for the country to create the perfect framework for physical and legal security so that Mexico becomes the industrial paradise where all foreign companies want to establish themselves. And now that you know all this, it's your turn. Do you think Mexico can become a superpower? Will the Mexican government be able to rise to the occasion? Feel free to leave your answer in the comments.